Going live?
That's it.
More wine.
Yeah, she's getting more wine. And we're in process of going live.
That needs to be our live soundbite. More wine.
Yeah.
Going live?
Live from the Plutopia News Network. This is the Plutopia Happy Hour, and there's wine everywhere, and cries of more wine.
That
So
needs to be our
Wine,
live
woman, and song.
soundbite. More
Our-
wine.
our guests
So-
tonight are the usual suspects that are usually here in Austin. Live from the Plutopia News Network. And Marcia, this is the Plutopia Happy Hour, and there's wine everywhere, and cry. What happened?
Something weird is going on.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time with language.
What happened there?
Who you have a hard time with?
Well, it was almost like we were hearing the show play live on Facebook or something. So there was like a delay.
Yeah.
Okay, so what happened
Yeah, I
was
heard it
when,
echo.
when we launched to YouTube, usually the volume is off, but we just launched to YouTube and the volume was on.
Oh,
So
okay.
what happened was it started playing through my speaker, and since I don't have my fancy, mic set up here, you heard it.
Wow. Okay. Well, you figured that out, troubleshooter.
And we're not going to sound as good, I think, because we don't have a sexy microphone.
It sounds
We just
good.
have.
You're doing fine, John. Anyway, John and Marcia are in Santa Fe, and they're going to talk about life on the road. And of course, the Not Ready for Cable News players are here. Screamish Joy, Susie Sheeler,
Guys.
and some old guy named Scoop Sweeney. That's me, right?
Ooh.
So,
You know what we just discovered a minute ago? We just discovered that it's an hour earlier here than it is there. And we couldn't wait till 7 o'clock to jump on the Zoom.
So you just got on at
because-
6.
Yeah.
That's
And
awesome.
we were going to have a little bite to eat and just take our time. And I was going to kind of come in around 6:30, 6:45.
Yeah.
It'll be all ready to go. Okay. Marcia wants me to move
Hence
over.
the more wine.
More wine. I swear to God, that should be like our sit, Ubu sit. More wine.
well, don't you have a DoorDash there in Santa Fe? I'm sure they'll dash over with a cup
I'm sure they do. I'm sure they have
for a price.
all the comforts of home.
More wine here.
And I guess that's what we're going to talk. We'll talk about this trip. That's kind of what we're here to talk about.
All right. So what kind of wine is that, just by the way? Is that a New Mexican wine?
Red. It's a Apothic Red.
Apothic Red. All right.
Good. Nice.
California.
All right. So tell me what's going on out there. Why are you there anyway?
Well, we're on
Vacation.
an extended vacation, which we try to make last as long as it can. As soon as this vacation's over, we'll take another vacation.
Excellent.
This is what you do as you get old and retired, and
you're a baby boomer who has Social Security. Woo!
Is
Just
this
saying.
like
an
is
internet
this a
personality.
revisited place? Is this
Say
a
what?
revisited place? Is this a revisited location that you go
It
back
is.
to,
We
or is this a
had-
new location? Like, this is like a favorite spot.
We have been to two favorite spots, and instead of flying, we took a car. And the plan was that we were going to take our own automobile and take off on this road trip. I think it was October 1st. Was it the 1st or 2nd?
Second.
October 2nd. So the day before we were supposed to leave, our car decided that it wasn't going to start anymore. So we had to rent a car at the last minute. So we've been driving a rented car, which has been fine. It's been
Yeah.
the car's been a real trooper on the trip. And we hopped into the car on the 2nd and set out for Colorado by way of Amarillo.
Oh,
We spent the
Nice.
night
I've
at
been
a
that
hotel
route.
in Amarillo and then kept driving. What is your complaint?
That's the least exciting part of our trip.
Well, I'm trying to set the context.
it's a setup. It's a setup.
It's a 3, 2.
Well, the drive I remember, from here to there, is exciting until you get into West Texas, which is just
Oh,
uh, where I grew up. So it's like, oh God, I'm here again. I wish
Yeah,
there
that's like my
was
favorite. I
help.
love that landscape.
Because when I think past Brady to Amarillo,
mhm.
we found ourselves on a road we had never driven
I
before.
think it's a new highway.
No, I
No
don't know.
doubt.
Which one is that?
Anyway,
It was new to us.
it was
though,
definitely
you know.
new to us and fairly interesting for that part of Texas.
Really? Meaning what? Was there like no Buc-ee's? It was like a vegetarian restaurant? What's going on?
It was
No
back
40-foot
road.
crosses.
And,
We
it
went,
had, some elevation changes. It wasn't just.
we drove through
Wow.
Winters, Texas, and in fact, I have been to Winters before when I was a kid with my uncle who worked there. Oddly enough, because when you drive through Winters, you can't figure out exactly what they do there. I guess it's mostly like, what would it be? Oil
Ranching.
industry?
Yeah, I would
Ranching?
think gas.
Energy of some sort. Like,
Yeah. So
Maybe
then
Yeah.
we found
they're-
ourselves
That's pretty much.
in Amarillo.
Not
And
worth mentioning.
well, I think
But-
it's worth mentioning that we set out to find haute cuisine. We wanted to have some really excellent food for our first dinner out, so we went to Taco Bell.
Of course.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's the best, right? That Amarillo has to offer. Now, was this Amarillo by morning or Amarillo up from Santa Fe?
Say what?
Amarillo by morning. Is that when y'all were there? In the morning?
No, we were
salmon town.
there in the evening.
Spent the night.
Everywhere.
Not-
Next day we drove on to, into Boulder and then up to Estes Park.
Amarillo's
Which is
about
nice.
halfway between.
Yes, that is nice. That's a hell of a drive.
It
Yes.
was a long ass drive. And we haven't taken a long drive in a long time because we have been sheltering in place. Right?
Yes. Yes.
And we got out on the road and we discovered in our travels that the COVID epidemic or pandemic is over.
Oh,
That people
that's
no
what
longer need to wear masks.
No one in Amarillo or anywhere around there had a mask on.
It's true.
I took my dog for a walk today and they totally did I just got a note from Scoop and it totally threw me off. Damn it. I'll turn it down. I'm sorry.
I don't
And
think it's
everybody I ran across had damn it. Now I can't remember what we were talking about. I'm trying so hard
Now.
to turn my music down. I mean my thingy down.
mask.
Yeah, everybody had a mask on. There we go. Everyone had a mask on. But not
Yeah,
there.
then Austin is good. Yeah. In the rest of Texas, not so much. And then Colorado and New Mexico both have mask mandates, as near as we can tell. So people do wear masks.
Yeah, that's because they elect sane people.
Mhm.
Same.
All of our
When you
friends
go
who
to
live in
restaurant,
Colorado report back sanity regarding
which-
COVID. That they all
Colorado
act-
is pretty interesting. So we were at Estes Park, and it's in Larimer County. And while we were there, we heard that the hospital at Larimer County was totally full, and that if anything happened, like if I was to have had
Overfull.
a heart attack while we were there, I would have been shut out of luck because there's no way they could put me in the hospital because they've got all these COVID patients in there. So even though it's not real obvious that COVID is spreading there, it really has spread quite a bit. And they do have a lot of cases. I think that what we saw was it was like 34 per 100,000, as I recall. which is
You know
not,
what?
you know,
uh, Are they
it's
level
Are they
comfortable.
4
vaccinating?
or level 5? Because we're down to 3,
I
I
don't,
think.
how do you
I
know? I
don't think
mean,
they're doing the same thing we're doing. But you know, it had gone down a good bit in the last few weeks before we went. So
Mhm.
I felt comfortable. And then to see everybody in masks, and it was such a relief not
That's
to have,
wonderful.
you know, people fighting that issue. Oh my
Mhm.
God.
but
Yeah.
if you go into a sit down restaurant, pretty much anywhere, people find it very difficult to eat through the mask, so they just take the mask off. So
I've
we have had some sit down dinners indoors in restaurants, maybe 3 times this trip, um,
and
where
you kept your
people
mask on?
no, you
No,
couldn't keep your
he's
mask on.
just
I'm saying it's impossible. Actually, I said last night that
It
we
is a
should work on
challenge.
an invention that is like a straw with a grinder built into it, so that you just like stick in your steak and it goes through the grinder and
baby
You know
food.
what?
yeah.
When I had braces, excuse me, when I had braces, my grandmother would do things like that for me so that I could, because I couldn't chew. So she would just like whip everything up and I would just kind of mouth it. It wasn't as good, but
It
braces
makes me think
suck.
of that Saturday Night Live skit where the parents would chew the food up and
Oh
spit
my
it into their
God.
son's mouth.
I
Do you
remember
remember
that.
that?
The baby bird. It's
Yeah,
so
that's the
I
way
funny.
remember that.
the penguins do that too. So
God, that was funny.
But
So,
we should get
Marcia,
Trump.
what else is going on out there?
It's been great. We were in the park every day except the first day. Well, the first day and the last day. So I guess that's 6 days we were there in the park. And we did a really awesome hike,
Which park? Did you say which park?
Rocky Mountain National Park.
Mhm.
And we did an awesome hike that was 2 miles up and 2 miles back, and we were bushed at the end of it, which is nothing for Rocky Mountain National Park,
It
but
was
that
a
was a
pretty
lot for
intense
us.
hike, yeah.
A lot
That
for
was a hike
me.
up to Groom Lake.
It's a lot.
Huh?
That is a lot. I don't think I could do 4 miles in a,
Well, it was, of course, you're not just walking on a level path.
Yeah,
You're
you
right.
go
I
going
in.
was like, it's
Right.
up and there's probably the atmosphere. I don't know. If you're already
Yeah,
used to it
we went up to
there.
I am really
10,000.
affected by the atmosphere when I go to Colorado. It definitely impacts my, like I have to adjust or whatever.
You know, there's things that you can do to acclimate, and we were looking into those. One of them is that you're not supposed to drink much alcohol or caffeine
For the
for a few
first
days
day or two.
before, and we tried that kind of, but I didn't do too well.
Hmm.
Well,
Fists with your
don't
toes.
overdo it. Huh?
You remember that? Fists with your toes. Fists with your toes. That'll help with everything. Wasn't that from Die Hard? You're supposed to make fists with your toes and it makes all your everything better.
Hmm.
Wasn't that what it was?
I'm doing that
Anyway,
right
doesn't
now.
matter. Doesn't matter. Are you? I am too. I'm doing it right now. Like while I'm talking to you, I'm like, oh yeah, that's good. That's actually really good.
It's making me want to punch
Actually, I
kick.
wish Maggie was
Go
here
on.
right now. We did drop by and see Maggie in Taos on our way down,
How's she
and
doing?
oh, she's doing great.
Yeah.
Everything's
She has an enormous house.
yeah.
It's
She's
really
down in a
nice
wonderful
and all in
place.
Louis style.
I love the photos she shares. It looks
She
just
Yeah,
does
awesome.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, but that we're getting ahead of ourselves. Uh, Rocky Mountain National Park, we should talk about a little bit more. One thing is that when aspen trees start to, well, in the fall, when they start to lose their chlorophyll kind of fades, and the actual color of the leaves comes out, and it's brilliant, bright yellow and orange and gold. So this whole trip, we've just been feasting our eyes on these incredibly colorful, beautiful trees, and we've taken probably a couple of thousand
It's
pictures, I believe.
unbelievable. The first time I ever saw it, I remember looking up into the
Wow.
up into a mountain and seeing the streak of gold, And I looked at somebody and I was like, what is that? Oh my God. And they're like, those are the trees. And I'm like, what? Like, they're so beautiful. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
John,
That's so awesome.
my friends in New England call you guys leafers because they get
Leafers.
the people who come up only once a year, and that's to see the leaves and generally trash New England and then leave and go back to New York, usually New York or New Jersey.
Ooh,
there's
that's
this
pretty.
Or leafers.
Oh,
Yes, the
Really?
leafers go all the way down through where I lived in Asheville. And now apparently there's a new term called leaf peepers, which really freaks me out. I don't like the name of that at all.
Sounds a little.
I don't know why they need the peeper part.
It
Yeah, that's a
sounds
I
little
think-
pervy.
I think in
Yes.
Colorado they should call them reefer leafers. Okay. Good.
Leafer perverts.
so tell us, so what were there a lot of people on the trail?
This is who we met on the trail.
Yes.
Oh, the Moose Lodge. I didn't know you
love
had moose.
They're amazing. So we had to get up at like 6:15 and make it to the park gate by 7 to get in. That was our time period, 5 to 7. And we wanted to be there by sunrise because the moose come out of the woods and go into the lake about sunrise.
Yeah.
Well, we walked around the lake and looked, and it was gorgeous. The sunrise was very mellow. And so we were just about to leave, and we heard these hoofbeats. Looked to the back, and there were these 3 moose just charging straight ahead. It was
Oh
just
my God.
mind-blowing.
They were late for work.
Yes.
They were late for they were late for lake.
Came within
Wow,
like 10
that's
So-
how close were they?
feet, 5 feet to
Oh
John.
my
I mean, they
Well,
came-
you can
we were
see a
sitting-
shadow. Look at a shadow in the bottom of the picture.
Oh my God, that's
Yeah,
terrifying.
it's like right there.
My camera right in my hand, so I got a shot as they went running by.
And they
Oh my
got
God,
into
I
the
would have been
lake,
terrified.
were happy and settled down and started eating, eating the seaweed and stuff and the moss in the lake.
I have to say, I haven't heard about a lot of moose attacks. So,
Well,
I
they
mean,
have, and they are damn big. I tell you what.
They have
I
moose
bet.
have all right of way in Estes Park. Like if moose are in the middle of the road, everybody has to stop and nobody can move until they move. They'll like hold up traffic for like half an hour. Like moose have all right of way in Estes Park. They rule the land there. It's a
Yeah.
trip. It's kind of
Elk,
freaky.
This was
They'll
elk
just be
run.
on the sidewalk. You'll just be
The
walking down
elks
the
were
sidewalk.
running.
There'll be a moose.
The elks were running in Estes Park, and what you find is there's like a kind of bull elk, and he's got a bunch
maybe
of
they're
he's got a
elk.
harem basically, and he kind of has to protect it. The first time we ever went to Estes Park and saw this going on, there was actually one bull elk challenging another.
Oh,
Got
wow.
to see them butlers.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
so okay,
this
I have to know
Well, what
what's.
challenge?
Go ahead.
Yes. No, you go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say I don't know the difference between an elk and a moose. I'm so sorry.
I know I'm confusing them too, but I
Elk have, the elk are smaller, and they're prettier animals. Really, the moose are
Okay.
not that attractive.
Wait
They're
a minute.
pretty animals.
It's
I
kind of
know.
like it's
I
a
know
bit like
Go
the
ahead.
difference between a thoroughbred horse and a mule.
Yes.
Oh,
Find
okay.
some here
Really
somewhere. Oh, I might have some.
Well,
I'm
But
looking
anyway-
for elk.
The elk, it's elk season right now. The moose really don't come into Estes Park hardly ever, but the elk are all over it. They have taken over the golf course. They
Yes, it-
wander
it was the
Sit.
elk.
that.
wherever the hell they want, and they have herds of like 20 to 50 animals, all ruled by this big bull. And
Until hunting season.
Sounds like a Republican gathering.
Oh,
It's about over. So the moose rut starts in November. So they'll be a little more active and threatening. But yeah, that's a good one, John. Unfortunately, the bull has his head down, but you can see his antlers. But some of
there
them,
you go. This is what you're referring to. You see the antlers here,
Yeah.
and then the standing
there's one
around.
of them that they call the Big Kahuna, who is like probably the biggest and oldest elk in all of Estes Park. And
Oh
Whoa.
wow.
Picture of the
He's
big
up in
kahuna. There he is, right there. I
Moraine
think.
Park, and he rules the roost.
Isn't this the big kahuna, Marcia? This guy?
I don't know, might be. He's got a number of points there.
Whoa.
That's a rack.
I'll say. So okay, so
I'm not touching a line like that.
and I
We saw
always
several
think
herds.
I always
Oh, go
think of
ahead.
meese as moose's. It's meese.
Pieces.
It's meese. It correctly is meese. So
Moose.
the meese look a lot like bullwinkle. What are those big things called? Those are those antlers? Because those are major things going on there.
Oh,
Aren't they like called
bull is a moose.
chelated or?
And I should point out, so that moose that you saw running by me was a cow, and behind her were two calves.
Yeah.
There was not a bull moose with them. If there was a bull moose with them, at that close range, he probably would have chased me out of the park,
Yeah.
or butted me a few times, which I probably deserve.
Yeah, they're antlers. They're not horns.
Okay, they
so
are
they
called antlers.
These enormous things
They're so huge.
every year and grow new ones.
Yeah, so they fall off.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Yeah. There's your antler.
The cows never grow the antlers. Never.
Right. Yeah.
Wow.
So
According
that's
to
what-
Google, the plural of moose is moose.
Moose.
Yeah, plural of moose is moose.
And it even compares it to geese. It has something to do with Anglo-Saxon origins. and
Organs?
not having them.
Organs?
No, I meant to say origins. I'm sorry.
Internal organs.
Yeah, I think Mises only apply to cartoon mice.
Mises. No,
That's
those are
what I
mouses.
thought.
Those are mouses.
Well, in
Now-
one
now I'm
country,
gonna
it's
look up the
Mises. I
plural.
hate you, Mises, to pieces.
Mice. They're
It's
just
mice, exactly.
Yeah, plural of
Exactly.
mouse is mice. That's
Yeah, we knew that already. We knew that.
I'm like, now I feel like I'm being tricked. Okay.
Okay, well, I'm looking and I see that meese is the plural of moose. So that's what I'm finding.
Okay, that's not what I saw.
I
Mm,
think it
what
would
I-
be meese, not Mises.
Potato.
I know.
But what is the plural of mouse?
Mice.
Mice.
Mouses.
Yeah, meat.
It's no, spelled the
Mouses.
same.
Fishes.
Spelled the same.
So, okay.
Well,
How
who
about
wants
this one?
to say I
Let's-
told
let's-
pieces to-
What
Yeah,
about
make
the
those-
spelling of-
John's back. I thought Marcia had exiled you to the parking lot.
I ran out to take some drugs.
Oh.
Good,
And you-
good,
So we
good.
must-
So, John, I've got a question for you. I've spent a lot of time vacationing in Colorado when I was growing up. And have you been anywhere near the Garden of the Gods, the Steamboat Rock?
Well, not on this trip. I did actually go to a conference there once,
Mhm.
and it was pretty nice.
Well, at the age of 5, I actually fell off of Steamboat Rock.
Oh my God.
I've had a chance to go there again, and I will not, because back in the 50s, you were allowed to go up there. They had a stairway that went up to the top, or most of the
Wow.
top. And like any stupid 5-year-old, on the way back down, my parents were saying, well, come on down. And I decided I'd be cool, and I got on the outside of the railing and was going down that way.
Oh.
like a stupid, kid.
Adventurous, like
and
an
I
adventurous kid.
and I fell backward off of that. By great fortune, there was a pile of gravel from a construction thing that I fell on.
Oh my
But
goodness.
I
Wow, did
thought
you land on your
my
back
mother.
or?
Well, I landed on my back, and it had bruised me up. But I was 5 years old, so I was immune to everything.
Right, you were still bendy.
My mother was torn between killing me and comforting me, and she did a little of both, I think. But I had an opportunity to go there, but I could not do it because I was like, no, that's a trauma I don't want to relive.
Wow.
So that's in Colorado Springs, and we didn't really spend a lot of
We
time
didn't
there.
even go through there.
Yeah, we went through
No,
there.
we did not.
We did too. We stopped in Colorado Springs and had at that Starbucks. Wasn't that Colorado Springs?
Classic travel right here. Classic.
Okay.
travel.
All right, you two go to separate corners there. Now, don't make me be a referee.
If you have a married couple on this, you ought to be prepared to do just that sort of thing.
That's
We
right. Okay, so
also the other thing,
yeah,
another thing you can do in Rocky Mountain National Park is drive across the Rocky Mountains on Trail Ridge Drive. So you go all the way up. I think you get to 11,000 feet. Is that right, Marcia, or 12,000?
That would freak me out.
It's
I don't know if I could do it.
11,000 plus feet.
I don't do heights.
And you go all the way over, and
That's
on
too high up.
the other side you come down, and the first place you get to is Grand Lake, where we saw there had been terrible fires there. The trees were really scorched, but going over it's an amazing drive. Really, you go right up into the tundra, and of course, speaking of altitude sickness, that's a good place to have it.
Yeah.
So you got to breathe, make sure you get some oxygen.
I was impressed. The last time we went over there were maybe 3 pullouts. And this time there were 10 or more pullouts. And each one has these big 3 foot wide, 4 by 2 foot
explanation,
info spreads from the Park Service that are really excellent. So, it defined tundra and showed you little parts about the tundra and the scientific information. And then it would show you a row of peaks at many parts curve and name all the peaks that you see as you're going across. And then there were some new things that we had never seen before, like lava cliffs. I'd never noticed that before going
What's it
across.
called? A lava what? A lava what?
Lava cliffs. It's this black extrusion, I guess, that is under the topsoil but exposed. The wall of rocks is exposed.
Wow.
And very interesting.
Well, you can see a lot of lava in New Mexico on what is that, Highway 25 that goes down the middle from Santa Fe down to the south of New Mexico. And I remember driving through there many times. And if you look on the side of the road in certain areas, you can still see lava that had flowed, and you would see the black outcroppings, and it's all through a certain that middle area of New Mexico.
I'm kind of
just because this thing happened the other day, and it kind of somebody anyway. Okay, so what area of the country would you consider where you are right now? Southwest, northwest, east? What? Southwest. Okay, so Ron Howard the other day said that on The View that he was raised in the Midwest, and he said Midwest multiple times in Oklahoma. And I think that's incorrect.
Actually, it is Midwest Oklahoma, right? right
I
in the
think
middle.
Oklahoma's Midwest. Yeah.
I would just say west. I don't think there's mid. I would call anything
Well, I would call Oklahoma West Midwest.
Yeah, be careful saying that, because my late mom will come back and and haunt
but
you.
the
But
Midwest
she's
is
from
like
Oklahoma.
Indiana,
Well,
and Illinois.
no,
That's the
I agree.
Midwest. That's the
I agree.
What's
Midwest.
Indiana?
Oh hell yes it
Indiana
is.
Except I always felt like those places were way too far east to be considered west.
They're
Like it never made sense.
Well, but it was called that. They made those
Farther
up
west than
before.
Yeah,
Indiana.
that's the rusty part of the Bible Belt, I think.
I mean, when I
No,
was in Iowa, I definitely felt Midwestern, right? But
Yeah.
Iowa's kind of straight up, and
Yeah.
you take I-35 all the way up. So
Exactly,
that
just
kinda
like
put Oklahoma
Chicago,
sort of like right there in the Midwest to me. It's just in the
It's-
lower
it's
part of the
too
Midwest.
low. It's too low to be Midwest.
Well, we're not allowing Oklahoma into our area.
Yeah, Oklahoma doesn't act now.
Here we go. Here we go. Look.
We just need one Dakota.
Oh yeah, no, there is only one Dakota.
No, there's an
Upper
East
and lower.
Dakota also.
East Dakota.
Texas
Good God.
is in the Southwest.
Upper and lower Dakota. That's all we need. So Oklahoma is considered Southwest by this map.
Yep.
No, this is Oklahoma. It's
No,
Midwest.
Oklahoma's Southwest.
Oklahoma's right above Texas.
No, it's
Yeah,
Midwest.
that's
Oh,
not-
No, you're right. You're right. I thought that was Oklahoma.
Yeah, Oklahoma. Yeah,
Well, that's
you're
Wow.
right. Kansas is above.
See, I told y'all. I told y'all.
So
Ow.
we need to get Ron
Right,
Howard
right.
on. We need to get Ron Howard here for the live stream so that we can.
I'm right
Yeah.
there with that. I'm down with that. I'm
All right,
calling him out
hashtag
right
Ron
now.
Howard.
Hashtag Ron Howard. Call us. Let's do this.
Yes, Ron Howard, you should be here with us.
We went hiking today and and a couple came up behind us, and the man's face was purple. I mean, purple.
I think it was more like a little bluish color, don't you
Was
think?
like, is
Blue
it
Bird.
makeup or?
Oxygen starvation.
We thought maybe he was
Lack of
hypoxic. I mean,
oxygen.
It's
Yeah.
somewhat high altitude. I don't know. They were from Oklahoma, by the way.
That
But I didn't
figures.
know what
Interesting.
if we should say something or
Yeah.
I
Well,
mean,
oxygen's a big up there. Oxygen, starvation is a big deal. I was with the band back in the early 1980s, and we were touring the Midwest, and we had some gigs in Colorado around Golden and all that area where it's really high up. And we go into this club, and there's oxygen on either side of the stage, backstage, right next to the stage, and mask. And we were like, what the hell is this? As soon as the band started playing, we found out because the singer nearly died. I mean, he got halfway through a song. He goes, take a solo.
Yeah.
And he runs off
Oh,
and
wow.
uses the oxygen. And they went through a lot of oxygen. It was
I want to know how
Wow,
they got
that's
it because
intense.
I
That's
can't
interesting.
get it. I've tried to get oxygen and the Medicare won't cover it and the doctor won't prescribe it unless you've got a pulmonary issue. I mean, it's this whole thing. And I'm like, well, what about mountain climbers?
Yeah. Well, they have oxygen concentrators for people with COPD that you can get.
But you have to have a prescription.
I don't think they're. I'd have to
No,
look.
Coop, there's a medical oxygen. There are places like there's oxygen bars you can go to where you can get like oxygen, but it's not medical level oxygen. There's a difference.
Right, it's not medical grade.
And you have to have a prescription to get an oxygen concentrator.
Well,
And,
what are
you know,
those
they're-
Sherpas lugging up the mountains? What is that the same stuff?
Well, in Tibet and Nepal, they don't have those kind of laws.
Well,
I've
you
seen 'em
remember the
doing it
story
here.
about there was that group of people that went up the Himalaya and several of them died. John Krakauer wrote a book about it. And one of the climbers was a Russian guy who prided himself in being able to go like all the way to the top without oxygen, but that's very rare. It's hard to do it. And most of the people who
The
climb
Sherpas do it all the
Everest,
time.
the Sherpas do it because they're acclimated already. But
They live there.
but people who climb Everest have to take oxygen with them. It's only really exceptional people who don't.
Is that where
And I know
Dyatlov's Pass is?
no, that's in Siberia.
Okay.
We should do a whole show on Dyatlov Pass.
I would
though somebody
love
gave me an
to.
explanation of that not long ago, which yeah, we can get into that.
It's
But
scary.
well, it's less scary when you hear the explanation. There really was apparently a landslide, but it it was kind of unusual, the configurations, and they really had, when they initially looked at it, they really didn't do a good job of figuring out what had happened. But recently there was a study of what had happened there where they came up with an explanation, which I can't give you because I don't remember exactly how it went, but it did have something to do with an avalanche, basically.
Yeah, they were. I know where we should definitely talk about it more though later after you find out what the end to that story is. I was just fascinated that they were all naked. That was what was fascinating to me.
Because the thing happened while they were in their tents asleep, and they jumped out and they tried to get themselves out and escape from the. I mean, they were apparently
I know, but
up.
sleeping naked in the Himalayas does not work for me.
Well, it depends on what you're sleeping inside of, because I have to confess, I haven't owned pajamas since I was 10 years old, I think. I'm a naked sleeper, and that means don't ever show up and try to get me out of bed unless you want to see more than you really counted on.
You probably would lose a few of your favorite body parts if you went to the Himalayas with no underwear.
Well, no, you don't go outside your sleeping container, such as a sleeping bag, because I did a lot of winter camping because I was a real geek, growing up. I was a Boy Scout and an Explorer Scout, and we did winter camping. We'd go out when it was really cold, and you had to plan ahead. But I was always naked because I had all sorts of things around me. But that was just me. But it's not unusual for people to be nude in the sleeping bag.
About his harem.
Yeah. Oh. you tell. Oh, so are you guys staying in B&Bs? How are y'all traveling?
No, we're staying. So at Estes Park, we stayed at a lodge called the Crags, which is very nice. And it's kind of old. It's been there forever.
It's historic. 1912 it was built.
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh wow.
So we stayed there, and that was pretty good. In Santa Fe, we're at I guess it's what do you call this? A resort?
Yeah, they're all resorts.
Yeah,
it's a resort. Doesn't have many services right now because of COVID, but it's like 5 blocks from the plaza, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's called Villas of Santa Fe.
So
we're in essentially kind of like a condo.
Oh, that's nice. So you have a kitchen and the whole bit.
Yeah, we have a kitchen.
Marcia was actually cooking dinner when we came on.
That's so good. I like that. I like it when you can do that. Can make your own food.
That's our version of roughing it.
Yeah,
right.
That's not my idea of a vacation, though, because I'm the one that does all the cooking here. So my idea of a vacation is going in and saying, I want one of those, and bring it, and I don't have to cook.
Yeah, that makes sense.
This saves a lot of money, I'll tell you what.
Well, it's not just saving money, but also it keeps us from putting ourselves into proximity to other people who don't have masks on, which is a consideration.
That didn't happen.
But so I told you we've had like 3 sit-down indoor visits to restaurants, which is unusual for us. We usually go like way more often than we have on this trip. And 2 of those was just Marcia and I. We did have one with our friends Brenda Laurel and Rob Tao, who live here in Santa Fe. Brenda and Rob had lived in And actually, there's a Plutopia podcast, the Brenda talk that she did to EFF Austin. And Brenda and Rob were living in the Bay Area. They were close to the area where the fires were, and their house almost burned down. So they decided to move to Santa Fe, to move inland.
Not a bad idea.
And they, they really like it here, love it here, really. And we met them at a very nice restaurant here in Santa Fe. And it turns out that Santa Fe has a lot of excellent restaurants and great food.
And they're all pricey.
And they're very pricey. Yeah, you pay a lot of money for it, but it's good.
Yeah, every time I ate in Santa Fe, it was pricey. It's like I had to go and check the net worth. Can we afford that? Well, I'll have to cut a couple of grandkids out of the will, but we can eat here.
Right? Well, too bad.
That's pretty much
It's your
it.
money.
Yeah. And we went to, we should mention, we went to Meow Wolf today. We did not go through Meow Wolf.
Oh, you went to Meow Wolf? Oh.
We didn't really go through
go
Meow
so
Wolf.
bad.
Tell me about that. What is that?
Gift shop. Meow Wolf is it's an art installation that's really big. But what I want to tell you about Meow Wolf is that it was packed. There were tons of people there. There was a huge line of people. And the time that we went to Meow Wolf and went through it, there weren't that many people there. It's insanely popular now. And there's
one in Vegas.
And now there's one in Denver. So they're branching out. They do have some affiliates in Austin. I don't know much about that.
I want to go. I want to go so bad. Me and a friend of mine are actually actively planning a road trip to Meow Wolf. Like, I want to go so bad. So
sound like they're becoming like the hipster Whole Foods now, only without food.
Right.
Like interactive art.
They have an insanely great gift shop, though. And
interesting.
Though we didn't want to take the time to go through, I mean, we've been through there before.
Did you exit through it?
What we did was we got them to let us into the gift shop so that we could, buy some stuff, including a CD that I bought that will start showing up on Radio Free Plutopia.
All right.
Nice.
Cool stuff.
Just
tons of cool stuff.
That's great. And what is your return date, or do you have one? Or are you just kind of winging it?
What, return to Austin?
Yeah, you drove, right? So you really can name your own.
Our last night. This is our last night in Santa Fe, and tomorrow we will drive to Big Spring, Texas. Where
you lucky people.
Settles Hotel. And the significance of this is that Scoop and I are both from Big Spring, Texas.
And we used to hang out at the Settles Hotel.
Wow.
Yeah, in fact, my grandfather used to live in the Settles Hotel.
Wow, that is so cool.
Yeah.
We have to take pictures and post them now. So along with this.
Well, it's a very upscale hotel these days. It was remodeled by a Big Spring ex who I went to high school, junior high, and grade school with his mom, and he grew up to be a multi-billionaire Republican activist, but that's
I just all of a sudden feel sick a little bit.
But he really loves. He really loves his hometown, and so he's remodeled the town, basically put a lot of money into it. So, he doesn't seem like an evil.
He kept his money local. Yeah, he kept.
Yeah, stuff he was going to do that he had never done yet. But I mean, if you're going to renovate a hotel, you hope that people are going to come to the hotel. And I don't know. I think at the time that he started this stuff, there was a bit of an oil boom happening in the area, so there were a lot of people there. But I don't think that's happening right now.
Well, it's starting to come back, though. I was just reading in some of the environmental stuff where suddenly that shale oil has become profitable now with
great.
oil going up to $80 a barrel. They can afford to get it. It's not the big oil companies that are doing anything with it. It's all the independents, the wildcatters that go out and reopen these fields. And so they're starting to get a lot of business back. But when it was down to $40 a barrel, Big Spring was a desert wasteland.
Well, I think it's what they call the Wolfcamp Shale is under Big Spring in Howard County, and the problem with the Wolfcamp Shale, it's I believe that it's the biggest deposit of oil they've ever really discovered in the U.S. That was my understanding.
That was South Texas.
No, it's in Howard County, and the problem is that it's very expensive to recover that oil. A lot of the oil that was easy to drill has been drilled, but this is oil that it's hard to drill. It's hard to get it out of the ground.
Yeah, it needs to be fracked, basically.
Oil prices have to be really high. So people who are investing out there are sort of gambling that the oil prices are going to come back to a high enough level to justify recovery of that oil. And who knows? But it's going to be kind of nasty. I think they have to use fracking to get a lot of it out.
Yeah, some of my friends that I grew up with said that it basically has to be oil at about $70 to $75 a barrel before they can really even think about reopening some of these wells, because a lot of them are just shut down because it just wasn't worth the expense of producing the oil, because no one wanted the oil.
I should point out that when we drove through that part of West Texas, we saw some amazing windmill farms. I mean, they were they were huge. They were all over the place, miles and miles.
Did they give you cancer with their?
Cancer, and we didn't freeze. Everything was kind of okay.
Yeah, John, if when you're in Big Spring, if you look up on what we used to call South Mountain, which is basically just a small mesa, it's, tons of it. My mom and dad's house was right on the side of that mountain. And my wife, every time she'd visit and they'd call it South Mountain, she said, "I'm from California. We call that a hill." And it basically
Didn't you live in Western Hills at the time?
Western Hills.
In Highland, whatever it was, there, right on the side of South Mountain, looking down on
the Highland, huh?
Looking down on the only mall they had of it originally.
This is so exotic, this conversation.
I know, it's all over.
I'm sure we're helping our numbers on YouTube immensely.
West Texas is so exotic.
Yeah,
it really is. It really is. I know a lot of people who are thinking about moving out to Terralingua, which I find interesting, because the whole thing about Terralingua is that nobody's out there.
The only people out there are the people that are trying to make money off of the people that they want to come out there.
I actually have an aunt who lived in Terralingua for almost most of her life, and she died there. And she was like, her name was Moses. That was like Aunt Moses. That was her actual name. But she moved out to Terralingua. I remember my dad always used to refer to her as his crazy cousin Moses. Moselle, that was her name, Moselle. We tried one time before she died. I tried to go visit her, but I guess there's this like big hill, like it's like a rock hill in Terralingua that you drive up that's so steep that you can't see the top of it. And she lives on the other side. And my anxiety got too bad, and I couldn't go over a top of a hill that I couldn't see the top of. So I backed out of it and didn't go visit her.
There's a great documentary about Terralingua, right? That's on Netflix. It came out at like maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And it is about the murder that happened out there. And it's really, really interesting. Yeah, it happened at the bar.
But not the murder.
Yeah, it's called it was at the only bar there. And this guy
Yeah.
who owned it was the guy who was killed. And for a minute everybody thought that the lady who cleans up at night did it because she ran over his head in the parking lot when she
Oh
was going
no.
home.
Oh. But that was an accident.
Yes, because she didn't see it. It was dark.
Yeah.
And she was going home. She didn't even know she hit it.
Thought it was a speed bump.
Yes,
Wait,
exactly.
what was
Just
his
a
head
speed.
doing on the at the level where she could run over it?
Well, he was dead. And so
Somebody
he
had
was
killed him.
laying on the ground, and it was a rocky, like one of those parking lots that's just a small, rocks and stuff. And so she thought she had just kind of hit a dip or something, and it was actually the
But she
dude's
didn't
head.
kill him. She
just ran over him on her way home.
What a
so who
bummer. That would
killed
bum
him?
me out so bad. I don't even like to hit squirrels when they're already dead. I
Oh,
mean, that
no.
would really stress me out. Like,
I know. It would
killed the
stick
guy?
with me. It was his best friend and the guy who was at the bar all the time. It was this really big dude who had some mental issues, and he would get really drunk and he became violent and killed him and never came forward. And like everybody knows everybody there.
The murder of Glenn Phelps. Yes,
Yeah.
everybody did know. When we went to Terlingua, we went to the general store, and I told them that I wanted to visit my Aunt Moselle, and she's like, oh, yeah, you got to go up that hill. Moselle lived there for like 60 years. I mean, she lived there for like long before any other, like she was a settler.
Yeah, some of those people have been there for a long time, and there's a reason. A lot of people will say that they're all out there because they're running from something. But
it's the murder of Glenn Phelps.
Yeah.
Moselle is a great name.
Moselle is a great
name.
Moselle. I think we had a Moselle in Big Spring too.
Yeah, we did actually.
Yeah, Moselle Grobel. But I don't understand why you couldn't just get your Aunt Moselle to come over the hill to where you were.
Yeah.
This is we had no way of communicating with her, and she would not have, because she was very how do we say, she was like permy before permy was permy. Like she lived totally off grid, and so you couldn't really convey to Aunt Moselle that you were trying to go visit her. Occasionally people who would go through Terlingua would just try to go visit her. But when I talk about the gravel hill, I know it makes me sound weak and scary, but I have actually had bad dreams about that gravel hill and not being able to make it over it. And like, it just wasn't possible. She doesn't know that she didn't get visited by me. And had I showed up, she might have literally been like, who the hell are you? And I would have been like, I'm Bill's daughter. And she'd be like, okay. So
and Bill is.
And that, right.
I don't know that.
So I was a journey. We were on a journey. I was trying to make it adventurous. I came close.
Yeah. Well, you guys y'all are going to be back in Texas in Austin when? On your journey? Saturday. Okay.
Yeah, Saturday.
That's awesome. That's good.
You missed all the rain. Did y'all get weather?
Man,
we have
cold.
Yeah, we've had very little.
You got cold?
Yeah, we were actually in some sleet the other day up in the mountains.
Ooh.
Yeah, Maggie was posting pictures of snow from up there.
It's snowing up there now, I think. It wasn't while we were there. And otherwise, I think we might have had a little rain here, but we haven't had weather to speak of. And I guess we're relieved that we didn't have to live through the great hurricane of the Austin area.
That was crazy. Yeah. That was just crazy.
Pamela.
Susie had a
tornado in her
courtyard.
Anyway?
I know a Pamela. She's a bit of a tornado, in a good way.
Well, John, you've got about 5 minutes left. Why don't you summarize your trip there? What's the best thing that's happened, and what was the worst?
Wow, what was the worst thing that happened, Marcia?
Having our car break down before we left.
Oh yeah, that was pretty bad. That was pretty
We
terrible.
found out about 4 o'clock, so we were leaving about 8 the next morning, so we had to.
I gotta say, it's been pretty
around.
smooth, and I really wanted to mention earlier how well organized the people who run Rocky Mountain National Park are.
Oh, cool.
And
that's nice.
we didn't completely understand, like they have this system where you have to register in advance for a 2-hour window to enter the park, but then you can stay the rest of the day.
Or you can come and go 10 times if
Yeah,
you want.
yeah, you can come and go as you please once you get in, but you have to pick a window and you have to come within that window. So it can be as early as 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. in the morning, which we had a couple of times. And we understood eventually that the reason they did that was because they were just being deluged with people. There were so many people coming to the park. And by doing it that way, they can control the number of people who are entering within any given 2-hour slot. Yeah. And they can also have some control over the number of people total that are in the park. And and it really works very well. The park is just very well run. So that's one thing. And really, you asked about the best of our trip was being in that park, seeing all those aspens just exploding everywhere we looked.
And the animals.
Yeah, and encountering
nature.
Those moose. I really wanted to see a moose, and we thought we weren't going to see what we were leaving the park when those moose came running by.
Wow.
So
that's
that
cool.
was a pretty big deal for us. And
It's
hanging
mice.
out with the elk is pretty cool too. Mice, yeah. And
The
then
mice.
I'm trying to think if anything really bad happened, but I don't think it's been pretty smooth. We didn't get sick. We didn't get. We did go a little crazy from time to time. Maybe the worst thing is that I missed every opportunity to go into the dispensary and buy some, ganja.
Right on.
I kept seeing, and I kept saying, well, I ought to stop. I ought to go in there. And I just never did. I kept thinking, well, when we get to New Mexico, but it turns out this is an interesting thing. New Mexico has passed the law for recreational marijuana, but this guy, we encountered this really cool guy named Lance there's this great little town on Highway 14 between Santa Fe and Albuquerque. It's called Madrid. It's actually the same as Madrid, but they call it Madrid. And they have a bar there that's a tavern that's been there since the coal mine. They had coal mines there. It was a mining town.
Wow.
And
plus
we
they
met
mine turquoise, silver, I think maybe gold. It was like 5 or 6 things they mined there.
And we met this really great kind of hippie guy who was waiting on us in the tavern when we went in to have a drink, and he was telling me that in New Mexico, even though they passed recreational marijuana, none of the dispensaries have their license yet for that. So you still have to have your medical card to get marijuana until they get all that worked out. So it's just like a bureaucracy.
Arkansas did something very similar. They okayed medical marijuana and then they never opened up any dispensaries. So you could have the card, but sorry, no place to get it.
Well, New Mexico is actually working on passing legislation that would allow people from out of state to get medical marijuana licenses in their state. So I don't know where that ended up, but they were working so that like all the neighboring states, like Texas specifically, could come in and get medical marijuana cards there. Honestly, it happens quite frequently without issue. They're more worried about immigration than they are about.
We talked to a woman from Colorado today who was lamenting the fact that hers was one of the few states where you can buy recreational marijuana because so many people have like come into the state. It's been such a deluge of people coming, just because they can get some cannabis, right?
And they're bathing in money.
All the other states would legalize marijuana so that it would be more evenly distributed.
It would be more equitable and for
just
everybody.
John, it's just like the future. It's not evenly distributed.
Cannabis is like the future. I've always thought so. Okay, here we are.
Well, enjoy your trip back. Give my regards to the Hotel Settles. Watch out for the bartender.
I don't know if we're going to go into that bar. You scared me away from it.
No.
All right, we'll see you guys when we get back.
All right.
Next week, whatever that's going to be.
Later,
Right. Hasta la pasta.